Let's get our Tiffany Quack opening. Welcome to Evolution Hour on the 5th of August, 2024. Whee! And remember, of course, all those cute little files that you can download and pass around at tortuganwordpress.com to get you started on the exciting information realm of the science evidence for evolution and why creationism is a pile of Ningo's kidneys. So, as usual, we are proceeding through. Oops, get my little book out here. Titans. Creationists attempt to deal with dinosaurs. And we're just about nearing the end of our little sauropods. There's going to be a few more cases of them bringing up taxa like Apatosaurus and that, where they're not really drawing any science material. But the early part of this little section on sauropods that he's got is basically a foray through other people's science research on sauropods, and it's worth a read to see how the actual science is being done compared to the creationist cartoon, and how the creationists aren't the ones who are doing it. They're not citing material directly from their own non-research. So a 2017 paper by Paul on the neck posture of sauropods and how Paul is arguing that there is, in fact, a little more variety than what they were thinking in terms of how it could twist and extend and raise and the like. Not necessarily as super spectacular as that little curvilinear one of the Mamenchosaurus, but nevertheless goes into a lot of little details on it. And it's clear that there's no disputation of this argument from the creationist point of view. But they're certainly not discussing the various evolutionary pressures that paper discussed on that. So that's not helping their case much. Next, an older paper by Myhrvold from 1997, which suggested that diplodocid tails could break the sound barrier when whipping. And this was some work that was done at the time. There were several different studies that had been working in this area, and that's fine and dandy. T are accepting it as fine in gee whiz mode about how wonderful the creation design was. Problem is there's no indication that Sarfati and Tay have any doubts whatsoever about this as a dynamic situation. Meanwhile, at the same time that Sarfati and Tay were writing their book, there was a paper by Conti in 2022 that was not taking that prior work for granted and doing further testing. And their new modeling suggested that no, the tails actually couldn't do that sonic boom trick. And it was also reviving the idea that the dynamics of the tails make them possible for defensive moves without it being whiplash crack, which reminds us that one, science is an ongoing and self-correcting process, and two, creationism isn't a ongoing and self-correcting process. They lack the gumption and skill set to actually think any of this material through or do research at all. So they're far behind the curve on this. Part two relates to more on Luskin's 800 plus papers. And there we got a couple fun ones going on here. Osipovich 2023, which is a, yes, in fact, I think I got to check the link on that because it looks like I've got something different on that. I'll have to correct that in my notes. It's an especially tendentious citation, as the paper only was indicating that the crab domain zinc finger protein mainly suppresses the ALUs it binds to. No indication whatsoever that most of the ALUs are functional or intended to do anything. Following up on that topic that was being raised by the Osipovich paper was another one, Torelli 2020, that showed up on their list as well. That was on primate restricted ones. Now, Torelli cited two papers on the context of what that they were talking about regarding how the KZFPs team up with transposable elements to build species restricted layers of epigenetic regulation. Neither one of the two papers that were being cited by Torelli are showing up on the 800 list. The Imbalt one from 2017, it's not open access, but there's a summary of their stuff at a website post that will get the gist of it. They're noting that a third of the crab ZFPs don't associate with TEs at all. And oops, I remember which bloody typer I'm adjusting on here. There we go. And their evolutionary origin goes back some 420 million years to a common ancestor of coelacanths, lungfish, and tetrapods. The other paper, Pontes 2019, is available open access, so I'll be putting the link up to that. They noted that the transposable elements are, quote, potentially toxic to the host, unquote, human early embryogenesis, thus allowing for their genome-wide incorporation into specific transcriptional network. So what is yet another theodicy issue about transposons that can come in and they're there, you can't get rid of them, and they're producing a glitch-up element that the crab zinc finger proteins are trying to compensate for, and beyond characteristics. But they're not really all of that. 800 list continues to be a long string of technical papers that are not supporting the position that even of the segments that they're discussing, that the majority of those are in fact functional and intentionally and beneficially functional. Every one of these things are still kicking into the issue about theodicies, disease problems, and toxicity. So why, of course, those additional papers that explain that context are not on the Luskin list. So were they aware of it and decided not to include it? Or were they unaware of it? They don't bother to read the footnotes of the papers they go around to cite to see what their argument actually refers to. All of that is certainly consistent with the structure of intelligent design apologetics as to where they're not really following through on the fiddly bit details of things. A thing popped up in some discussion from Dan Stern Cardinale and others on a wacky creationist paper by Sanders dumping on phylogenies and evolutionary phylogenies. And it really got the attention of him and Zach Hancock and a few others in our little science discussion group. So I looked into that and I bumped around my scheduling. So next week, that's going to be the part 2. We're going to be dealing with that little puppy because it illustrates how snarky and evasive the Sanders style of answers in Genesis argumentation can be, and how non-existent is their alternative, because quite a few of these things, since we're dealing with phylogenies, we're dealing with systematics, and they are bumping into a whole bunch of areas, including nematodes, that creationists just don't think much about. So it'll be kind of like almost a comic relief sidebar as to how tendentious and arrogant and pointless that little argument is. Anyhow, not seeing anybody in the live chat, and so this may be a kind of short show today. We'll see what we can deal with on things. Let's put up our little thank you note for our patrons, without which this would be so much more difficult to do. Our weather was kind of kicky, humid, but somewhat cooler, and a little bit of light rain in the morning, which was kind of helpful, but it did make it more humid, made it feel like kind of like Minnesota in temperatures. And then we're still going to be some bumping into the 80s and 90s over the next few days, and what happens later on in the month, I'm not sure what the heck is going on. But anyway, thank you all to our colleagues and researchers and assistant researchers and friends and all the legacy patrons who have helped over the years to keep the little process a-going. Okie dokie. Now, and since there's no one in the live chat that I can see, I'm not going to be having any feedback on that front. So let me put my little advert up for Rocks Were There Volume 2. We're busy beavers working on Volume 2. And there's going to be a lot of really neat material that we're folding in every single week as new science papers come along. Been a couple fabulous new papers on Cambrian taxa that are relevant to the material that we're discussing in Volume 2. And so that's all being folded in. So we'll be hoping to be just as up to date on a 2025 publication date as we were with the 2021 on Volume 1. Okay, so let us put up our little rocks advert. And share our screen here for you all. And away we go. And away we go on that. Jackson and I are certainly very, very pleased with the first volume, and we will uphold that principle for the second volume, which will be filling in even more material. And between the two, then, it will be a very comprehensive guide to the various claims that are being made on so many different topics, and thoroughly indexed so everyone can find stuff in a hurry. I've been kind of learning the trade on some of the little details to fill in some of the little sidebars on. So I think the indexing will be even more precise and comprehensive for 2 than 1, but we will see how that goes. So anyway, relatively truncated show then. We got our material in. We'll be sticking the links in as soon as the image is finalized. And we will see all of you folks next week. Everybody stay safe. There's flooding and stuff in Florida, continuing heat wave in a lot of our west, and all the different difficulties that can happen with so many circumstances. And then again, you got rampaging penguins, wooden penguins to deal with. So keep careful, keep safe, and we will see you all next week.